This is the Bleav in Pro Wrestling podcast. Here's Rick Ucchino and SP3 on the Bleav Podcast Network.
Rebel hearts everywhere today, just filled with absolute joy on the shocking return of Johnny Gargano to WWE last night live in Toronto. And I don't mean that it was shocking in the fact that he's back with WWE. I just mean it was shocking in the way that it happened. Not a sniff, not a report, not a whisper, not an inkling, any other adjective you can figure out to describe how out of the blue that completely was. Hour number 3 last night, we come out of commercial break, boom, no introduction, no fanfare, no nothing. Rebel Heart just plays. The crowd is confused for a half a second, and then I was so happy for Johnny last night when that crowd in Toronto lost their minds and gave him the ovation that he truly, truly deserved. That's always something that you have to question when an NXT superstar comes up to the main roster. They knew who Johnny Gargano was last night. Everything about that just worked. It is really hard nowadays to honestly surprise wrestling audiences and keep things out of the papers or the dirt sheets. Papers, what is this, 1997? Keep things off of the internet these days. Well done by everybody last night. Everybody last night. Such a great moment to see Johnny back and to get that reaction. It was just the cherry on top of the Sunday, SP3.
The Canadian crowds feel like the Canadian crowds again. It was a tremendous crowd in Montreal for SmackDown last Friday, and that reception that they gave Sami Zayn. The Toronto crowd was amazing. Last night, whether it was the ovation that Kevin Owens got for accepting Chad Gable's challenge, or the reaction that Edge got in the main event, but definitely it was a very proud moment for any fan of the black and gold era of NXT, and the fact that for the past nearly a year we've been bashed over the head from the old regime, trying to tell us that the black and gold NXT never existed. And not only did that crowd respond to Johnny Gargano, a guy that it was as synonymous with the black and gold era of NXT than anyone else, we got a segment with him and Theory. It wasn't just the moment of him coming out and getting the ovation. It was the fact that they put him into an immediate feud that is very interesting and plays off of stuff from NXT black and gold era. So it was a thumbs up, home run type of debut. I would say it was the best debut that the Triple H era has given. I thought Carrion Cross reintroduction was very well done, but this one was just even better. Just how out of the blue, out of nowhere, no reports online beforehand. It was just a complete surprise. No build up, no suspense before it. Just hit his music, and it was kind of like, wait, that's Rebel Heart. Wait, that's Rebel Heart. And
that's
then
exactly what I did. I'm like, oh, that song? Oh my God. You see the heart and the winky face and everything like that. That was my exact reaction. It was like, wait, I'm sorry, what? Like, I had just taken a sip of coffee, and luckily I had swallowed it. Otherwise, I might have spit it out in true like cartoon-esque fashion last night. It really kind of I felt the same way when Johnny's music hit last night as I did when Dakota Kai's music hit at SummerSlam, right? It was so out of the blue. There were no reports about it. There were no inkling. The only thing that, made SummerSlam even better was Io Shirai, Io Sky, old habits die hard, came out right after that. And you talk about this being the best debut. I honestly think of all the re-debuts, of all the people that have been brought back, I think they've all been done very well. From Dakota and Io to Carrion to Dexter Lumis to now Johnny Gargano. I feel like there's somebody else I'm forgetting because they've all...
Exactly, because it was forgettable. Hit Row. That's why I said not all of them have been great. Not all of them have been great. Some of them have been like, am I really going to remember that a week? And you, case in point, didn't remember it because it wasn't that good.
But we've also established
you said the words, and then as soon as you said it, you immediately made yourself
to be fair, we have established on this program before, my memory is dog shit. Before we get
I am saying I am being fair to your memory. This wasn't worth remembering.
Fair enough. Totally fair enough. Before we get any further, got to thank our friends over at Bet Online. They continue to be the fastest and easiest way to wager on all your favorite sports, contests, and events with the first to market odds and lines. Find reviews and news for every league, including Major League Baseball, NFL, NBA, NHL, combat sports, esports, and golf. Bet Online continues to be the top online resource for all of your sports information, from live in-game betting to props and futures. Head on over to Bet Online today or use your mobile device to join and make your first bet. Use our promo code BLEAV50, BLEAV50 to receive your 50% welcome bonus on your first deposit. Bet Online, where the game starts. And SP3, first off, thank you guys, everybody who has joined in the chat so far. Everybody loving the return of Johnny Gargano last night. Even people who aren't big fans. ALW saying, look, I'm not a huge Gargano guy, but WWE did well with his reintroduction, and welcome back, and hopes that he does well. Appreciate everybody who is joining in the chat. Delwyn James saying, give me Johnny versus Theory at Clash at the Castle. This is what I hoped they would do. This is exactly what I hoped they would do if Johnny Gargano was going to come back, because it just made too much sense not to do it with as heavily pushed as Theory has been. I know there are people of the mainstream audience who don't watch NXT, probably don't know the history between Johnny and Austin Theory, but that is exactly what video packages and promos like Johnny Gargano delivered last night are for. How many people who have floundered from NXT or flat out WWE flat out failed by not doing something like they did with Johnny last night? It was so simple. It was so simple. Hey, I'm Johnny Gargano. Thanks to you guys who remember me. For those of you who don't, here's why you should give a crap. And it was a simple, effective thing. And then boom, here comes Austin Theory. He's like, hey, we got history. We used to be in the same group, but I've now surpassed you, right? I've already accomplished everything that you came back to accomplish. And that was such the simple, easy story to go to. And everybody's sitting here talking about Johnny should take the briefcase. Johnny should take the briefcase, which is something we've talked about on this show. If he had come back, that's something that we talked about. I don't know if Johnny's going to take the briefcase. I think if he's going to win the WWE Championship one day, I think it's going to be a slow uphill climb, like everything in Johnny's career has been. And I think that's the story. He plays that ultimate underdog role very, very well. But I love the promo exchange. I thought it was a great introduction to the main audience. And I think it's great that Johnny is back. And it's pretty clear that he's going to be put in a prominent role moving forward. The only issue that I think that SP3 is going to have with this is the fact that it's the rich get richer, right? We've talked about this. Monday Night Raw getting another superstar.
Man, I heard people on social media saying, "Oh, I hope my favorite wrestler stays on Raw now." Like, could SmackDown get anything? Could SmackDown get a smidge of food? Can I get some food, Mister Ebenezer Triple H? Can we get
Please,
some
sir,
food,
I'd like
please?
some more.
Please, sir. Can I get some little bit of something? No. And he's like, here's your hit row. Here's all your. Here's your Carrion
Cross is going to be good, but yeah, I get what you're saying. I totally want to
like you got all the work rate guys on one brand. You got Kevin Owens, you got Seth Rollins, and now you got Johnny Gargano on one brand with AJ Styles and Ciampa, and it's just like, god damn, can SmackDown get a little bit? Can SmackDown get a
taste, please?
Can I get a taste? Can I get a little bit of the taste? But no, I love that he is set up to feud with Theory. I think this is a nice little transition for Theory. The only person who I would feel bad for in this situation is Dolph Ziggler, because you would have thought that the whole Dolph Ziggler Theory program was going to go a little bit longer, but I guess Shawn Michaels got on their phone. We heard the reports from Sean Ross Sapp and Fightful Select that Shawn Michaels got on the phone. He was given the job to call up Johnny Gargano, getting him to come back, and his calling worked. So who's next for Sean to call? Is Sean gonna work on Sasha and Naomi next? Is he gonna work on Breezango next? Who's Sean gonna call up to come on back? Emma. Here we go.
Yeah, that was that was somebody who I expected to show up last night because Emma's now a free agent. Tennille Dashwood, for those of you who follow her in Impact Wrestling, she's now a free agent. But that might be who SmackDown gets next because she is in a relationship with Madcap Moss. For those of you who don't follow on social media, so they typically like to keep the couples together. SmackDown is the brand that needs a new infusion, just a little bit of help. If anybody's roster is going to be added as far as the depth is concerned, right? I think SmackDown is the one that desperately needs it. I think they could use another top-level babyface, especially in the women's division. I think eventually we're going to get that with Sasha Banks and Naomi, but I think Emma would be a fantastic addition as well.
I mean, I find it hilarious that the woman that we all thought was turning heel at SummerSlam has become the top babyface on SmackDown, Ronda Rousey. Ronda Rousey's been getting ridiculous reactions the past 2 weeks since they quote unquote heel turned her. She's been the hottest babyface of the women's division. It's crazy.
Which goes to show you that WWE's philosophy of putting baby faces in a bubble, right? Baby faces are only allowed to do certain things. It is so outdated. It is. Yeah. It's.
And you don't have to
do that.
You're seeing that Triple H understands that, though, with how he booked Kevin Owens last night. He knew Kevin Owens was going to get a babyface reaction in Toronto, and he placed him against a heel who just cut a whole promo about how Toronto Maple Leafs are not good at hockey. So he got all the heat to transfer to get KO an even bigger reaction when he came out and accepted the challenge. And I like this. Kevin Owens is like the shades of gray type of character, and the fact that Roman Reigns has acknowledged him on SmackDown this past week. We might get what we've been wishing for. We've been saying it for months. Sami Zayn and Kevin Owens. That was the first hint that we got it on SmackDown, and then we've seen that Kevin Owens is not in the box of being the heel Kevin Owens. He is going back to his former presentation as the prize fighter, but more of a shades of gray type of prize fighter who's just out to get all the titles regardless of face or heel.
Yes, and we'll talk about KO. We'll talk about Sammy coming up here in the 5 count, because the reactions for both of those guys outside of Johnny Gargano returning was honestly my favorite thing of the entire weekend in professional wrestling, from SmackDown to Monday Night Raw last night. Sami Zayn's reaction, like in Montreal, damn near brought tears to my eyes, because I'm sitting here and I'm going, this dude deserves his flowers for the work that he has done over the last 2+ years. This guy is somebody who could be a top-level babyface in WWE if just given the opportunity. And I know it's his hometown crowd, but the roof exploded for him. Like borderline Triple H Madison Square Garden level exploded for him, and he soaked in every minute of it, and they wanted him so damn badly, right? They wanted him so badly to win that match and get the shot at Gunther at the Intercontinental title at Clash of the Castle. And I understand why he didn't win it, just like I understand why Damian Priest didn't win in the main event last night. But I can't help but thinking that the right choices for both of those matches would have been to have Damian Priest win and to have Sami Zayn win, but for completely different reasons.
I don't think Damian Priest needed to win. He needs to win at the end of the feud. This is not the end of the feud. This was kind of like the middle chapter. We got to the middle of this story, after the big twist of Damian and Finn and Rhea turning on Edge. This is like really the first matchup they had had with each other. Edge just returned at SummerSlam. He needed this win here in Toronto more than Damian did. Damian just needs to win at the end of the feud, whether that's at Clash of the Castle in what looks like it's going to be a mixed tag match or whatever they do there. If they get the win there, I don't think this loss here that it's like the wrong or right choice.
And that ultimately at the end of the day is why I was okay with it. Plus, it's like WWE, they're tearing me here because I would have liked to have seen Damian get that big win, but also you got the hometown kid and Edge. Let him win a kid. What am I talking about? He's 46 years old, but you got the hometown guy, right? Let him win in front of his hometown fans, which is why I wanted Sami Zayn to win on SmackDown. I was like, oh, that would have been great. But at the same time, we're getting Sheamus versus Gunther for the Intercontinental Championship at Clash. I get that. And maybe this does kind of still open up an avenue to where we'll get KO and Sami down the line. We will talk about that coming up. But we brought up Edge. Really strong main event last night. Just Damian Priest being in that spot was the win for him last night. And I thought he delivered. Some of those spinning back kicks that he hit were just absolutely glorious. Him pulling out the smoothest kill switch that I've ever seen in my life. Turns out that move is so much easier to do if you're like 8'12", like Damian Priest is. Just pulled it off flawlessly. And then Edge pulling out the Canadian Destroyer for F's sake, and then hitting the spear for the win before the Judgment Day came down. And then we get the standoff with Beth Phoenix holding up the chair, coming out there and fighting for her man. So it looks like she's going to get involved with this. Maybe we'll get Rhea versus Beth Phoenix at some point. We'll talk about that coming up. But it was afterwards that drew the headlines. After the show went off the air last night, Edge addressing the crowd there in Toronto kind of started the clock on his retirement a little bit. If you believe Edge, again, he's constantly working. He's one of those superstars, but says, hey, look, typically we come back here in August. And, if he had it his way, he'll have his final match there in Toronto about this time next year. Are you buying that? Are you buying that maybe we got less than 12 months of Edge left here in his pro wrestling career?
I'm buying that he probably wants to, have his final match in Toronto. I'm buying that he probably thinks that he has one more year, but I wouldn't be surprised by the time we get to August, we hear he re-signed with the WWE because, that's what I also think what Chase just put in the chat. I think I wouldn't mind SummerSlam in Toronto and in one of their, bigger arena, bigger stadiums. They could do something like that, and then the next night he can have one final matchup and have that be against Damian Priest 1 year later, and Damian Priest gets to pin Edge on his way out. That would be great. So I'm buying that Edge believes he has a year or so left in his career. Am I buying that he will retire in a year? No. I'm buying he thinks he will retire next year.
You look at everything that Edge has done since he came back, and it sucks that about 7 months of his comeback was chunked out because he had to have triceps surgery after the greatest wrestling match of all time or ever, whatever the hell it was booked. And it wasn't even the best wrestling match of that year, voted by its own company. Anyway, but he spent so much time with Randy Orton. He spent a lot of time with Seth Rollins, and now he's spending a lot of time mixing it up with the Judgment Day, and we're not done yet. There are still things that I want to see him do. Like maybe I'll get the eye roll here because he is 46 and, there are so many other people. I still would love to see him get one more run as a world champion, whether that's WWE or Universal Champion. And I don't want that man to retire, or the other man I'm about to bring up here retire, until we get one more tag match. I think it is borderline criminal that both Edge and Christian are active wrestlers again, and there's a chance they're not going to team with each other. Not one final time, not one more damn time. I don't care who the opponent is. Just give me one more Edge and Christian match. And I know that's only going to happen in one place. It's only going to happen in WWE because I don't see Edge signing with AEW out of loyalty to have one more match with Christian. So it's going to have to be whenever Christian's contract is up with AEW and then he decides to come back to WWE, whether it be for one more run or one more match. So a lot of red tape to clear up there, but selfishly, I don't want Edge to retire because I want that one more Edge and Christian match, which is why, selfishly, I was a little disappointed that Christian signed with AEW in the first place, even though I don't fault him for doing that one iota. One iota. I don't fault him for doing that at all.
I'm totally good. As one of the biggest Edge and Christian fans. Like, I was the Edge and Christian fan when everybody else in my school were Dudley's and Hardy's fans. I was doing the 5-second pose in the middle of geography class. So yeah, I am a huge Edge and Christian fan. I'm totally fine with them never having a match again because honestly, Edge looked great, and that was one of Edge's best matches since his return. And Christian is doing the best heel work possibly of his career in AEW. So both are doing great. Both are doing fine. I'm totally fine with them never having another tag match again because the only tag match I want to see them against is against one guy who hasn't seemed like he's doing the best work of his career and another guy who is probably going through 12 steps. So that's the only match that I want to see if they're going to team up again. And right now it doesn't seem feasible. Or if not that, I probably can go through 5 or 6 AEW tag teams before I get to one WWE one, because I'm sorry, Edge and Christian versus the Usos doesn't really tickle my fancy as much as Edge and Christian versus the Young Bucks, Edge and Christian versus the Lucha Bros, Edge and Christian versus Santana and Ortiz. Man, I'll take Edge and Christian versus Jurassic Express at this point before I get to finally saying Edge and Christian versus the Usos. So I agree with you. The only place I could see Edge and Christian reuniting is WWE, but I'm just not interested in any of the matchups WWE can offer.
Yeah, I'm a sucker for nostalgia, which is why I want to see them back together one more time. And I say I don't care about the opponent, but let's be honest, I really do care about the opponent. And that does raise an interesting question, because if you want that match to happen, then it needs to be against the Hardys. But then that raises even more red tape because 3 out of 4 of those guys are in another company right now. And one of them should not be focused on wrestling whatsoever for quite some time. And like you said, the other one, Matt's doing okay, but it definitely looks like Father Time is catching up with him just a little bit. Nothing wrong with that. It happens to everybody unless your name is Bobby Lashley or Trish Stratus, for that matter, who looked just as good as she did in 1998, 99, 2000, 2001. Whew. God bless yoga pants. Anyway, so I would say, and a lot could change by the time that could happen, I'd say a match that would intrigue me would be like Edge and Christian versus the Street Profits. I think that could be a lot of fun. I just don't know how the story works. I just don't know how you mix those guys together.
That doesn't interest me. I'm sorry. Street Profits is a great team, but them versus the Edge and Christian, I'd be more excited to hear them talk against each other than wrestle.
And that is also very, very fair. Appreciate everybody who is joining us so far. Continue to get your comments in the chat. We'll try to get as much as possible. Frantic World saying Edge and Christian versus Top Flight. That might be another one SP3 is on board with. Romeo saying, I don't need to see E and C versus the Hardys. No thanks. We'll see. Again, a lot can change, and we still need to get Christian over in the other company before anything could happen there. But continue to get your comments in, questions in. If there's something else you guys would like to talk about, feel free to throw that up there as well. If you're new to the show, thank you so much for joining us. Make sure to hit that thumbs up button there, guys. And also, if you're new, make sure to hammer the subscribe button. Really, really helps drive our audience. Can't express our appreciation enough. By the way, once we're done here, I did drop a conversation with Damian Priest from SummerSlam weekend. That is up now in its entirety. Please make sure to check that out. Give that the thumbs up as well as soon as we are done. We got a lot of big questions coming out of last night, so let's dive into this, shall we?
It's time to answer the 5 count on the Bleav Podcast Network.
With no disrespect to anybody else who has come back, I would say the biggest fish of the free agents that have found their way back home in WWE, at least on the men's side of things, would be Johnny Gargano and Carrion Cross. Both are clearly being set up for, I guess you could call it a major push, but it definitely seems, I would say the safe thing to say would be they are going to be integral parts of Raw and SmackDown moving forward now that they are back. So, SP3, I will ask this. Which returning superstar is going to have a bigger long-term impact in WWE, Johnny Gargano or Carrion?
Johnny Gargano. Next question. I'm sorry. Like I am probably a bigger Carrion Cross fan than most. I think that his character is great. I think he can be a great talker under the right presentation. Like case in point, I did not like the smoky room that he cut his promo and then did the whole glance as Drew McIntyre was going out to the crowd 2 weeks ago. But I absolutely loved the vignette with the black and white that they did on last week's SmackDown. So under the right presentation, he feels like a main event star that should be a slam dunk under the WWE. But I'm sorry, in the Triple H WWE, the guy who's going to have a bigger long-term impact is Johnny Gargano. We know Triple H values Johnny Gargano, and we know Johnny Gargano can come through and cash in on that. All we have is a small sample size of what Triple H can do with Carrion Cross, and that honestly did not have a long shelf life in NXT before Adam Cole cut that promo and completely tore Carrion Cross to shreds. So all we have is basically what? 6-7 months of what Triple H presented Carrion Cross as in comparison to what 6 years of what he did with Johnny Gargano and made him into the biggest babyface, a Mount Rushmore black and gold NXT performer. It's easily Johnny Gargano, and it's not even funny how much this is a 10-8 round in my opinion.
Romeo saying, looks like they got a long-term plan for Gargano, U.S. IC title, then WWE title. Cross will get a shot to the top, but probably won't win. I disagree with that. I do think Carrion Cross is going to win a world championship, and he probably will win it before Johnny Gargano does. Because, again, I think with Johnny, it is definitely a long-term build. He's talking about winning IC and United States championships. Carrion Cross has been brought back to win one of those world titles, and I think sooner rather than later. I think this is a guy who's going to get a hot shot to the top. I am probably a bigger Carrion Cross than even you are at this point. I will say my answer is going to be Johnny Gargano, even though I think it's a little bit closer than what you're saying, but not much, because we know Johnny Gargano can be a top-level babyface, and we know people are going to love him. They're going to gravitate toward him. They are going to want to root for him in the best way possible. And again, he's definitely got that work rate. I don't know if Carrion Cross, I think he's a great heel. I don't know what Carrion Cross can do as a babyface and if that'll translate to the WWE universe. So for that sake alone, I'm going to say Johnny Gargano. But I do think both of these guys are going to be major players, and I definitely think they add a lot to their respective brands. One guy we can say has returned, even though he technically didn't go anywhere and is arguably coming off of the biggest match of his entire career at WrestleMania. But Kevin Owens is back. The prize fighter is back. The duct tape shirt, the Titantron, the presentation, the pop-up powerbomb finish. We got KO. He is there. And like you said, SP3, it's amazing what a difference a week can make, because it's like Sami Zayn does that whole angle with Jimmy and Jay, and we're like, oh, maybe he could reunite with KO, and maybe without even like any evidence whatsoever. We're talking about, well, maybe Sammy's the guy who could take the tag team titles off of the Usos, because it seemed like there's some kind of conflict brewing between them. And then all of a sudden we get Kevin Owens, who just decimates Ezekiel, and we're like, oh, okay, so he's a heel, so that ain't going to work. But then Sammy gets that big babyface reaction. He starts talking about Kevin Owens with Roman Reigns. And then KO's talking about winning championships and winning the tag team titles. And he definitely seems like more of a tweener, kind of a babyface role here. So it's like all of a sudden my confidence, which was shot just a week ago, at this time, I'm like, oh damn, we might actually be getting this. Like this makes too much sense. And now there's evidence that they are leaning towards KO and Sami Zayn reuniting and ultimately taking the tag team titles off of the Usos. And you alluded to it earlier. You're kind of in that same boat with me that confidence is growing by the week here.
Yeah. I was at maybe, let's say 10%. I'm now at a good 45% that this reunion can happen and possibly will happen. And really it wasn't even the reaction for Sami Zayn, it wasn't even the reaction for Kevin Owens. It was Roman Reigns mentioning Kevin Owens to Sami Zayn in that backstage segment, and the absolute poppable electric chemistry between Sami Zayn and Roman Reigns. Like, that was magical. That was one of the best nuance. That's the best segment Roman Reigns has done as the tribal chief since back during the Jey Uso rivalry. Like, that gave you the nuance that really made him the most must-see character in WWE, was his interaction with Sami Zayn. And that's why I was like, yes, give me more of this. Give me more of Sami trying to prove himself to Kevin Owens, to Roman Reigns, and Kevin Owens kind of being the person on his shoulder to be like, hey, yeah, let me tell you, like, I'm your real friend here, and let's take these tag team titles. So yeah, I am more confident than ever that Kevin Owens and Sami Zayn will reunite, and they are the slam dunk hit to take the titles from the Usos.
I don't often agree with Romeo, but this would be a tag team match that would intrigue me. I don't know if that does anything for you, SP3, but Edge and Christian, Kevin Owens and Sami Zayn, that I can get behind.
Yeah, that's one, but I'm sorry, Young Bucks still ahead of them. Lucha Bros still ahead of them, but we still have to get Kevin Owens and Sami Zayn. I see a bunch of people saying Kevin Owens and Sami Zayn DIY. Y'all are all saying tag teams that aren't even together. Like, let's talk about teams that are actually together, then currently there, instead of our fantasy booking.
How about the Viking Raiders? Hey, it does look like we're getting Sarah Logan back. At least, well, she's back in some way, shape, or form, because that was totally her in that Viking funeral thing that they did on Friday. We'll see if she actually gets back into a ring. I've long said after they split up the Riot Squad, it made total sense to put her in with the Viking Raiders. So we'll see if that actually comes to fruition. Frantic World saying, I'm a bit surprised that Johnny Gargano went to WWE because AEW would have given him days off to be with his family.
I'm not. I've been saying this for months that Johnny Gargano is going back to WWE. It just always seemed like that, from the way he cut his promo to everything he said since then. And even with the report from Fightful following his return last night, it said that people in AEW kind of never thought he was coming to that company. So they were in line with what we were all thinking. It kind of always seemed like Gargano was going back to WWE.
And you know what I love about this? Is they bring him back 2 days before AEW is in Cleveland, which means we can stop. We can stop with the, oh my God, so-and-so company's in Cleveland. Johnny's coming back, baby. We could totally stop with that. I know it would have made sense to bring Johnny back in Cleveland a couple of weeks ago when WWE was there, but two things: Theory was still out on bereavement, and then, Johnny probably wasn't signed yet at that point, probably didn't come to a deal. So this probably is something that also came together pretty quickly once Triple H got back in charge and Johnny saw some things and was probably promised a few things. And that's why he's back in WWE. It does not surprise me in the least. Saw a lot of Canadian love last night on Monday Night Raw. We talked about Kevin Owens. Aaliyah got a one-on-one match with Bayley last night. I didn't know Aaliyah was from Toronto, but very emotional night for her. So I'm glad that she got that match, even though I'll say that being Bayley's first televised match in God knows how long, fell a little flat, fell a little anticlimactic. I would have rather they just kept her out of the ring on television until, Clash at the Castle. Might have been a better spot for that. Aaliyah really could have wrestled anybody last night. Could have wrestled Dana Brooke, could have wrestled Tamina, could have wrestled Nikki A.S.H, could have wrestled Doudrop, maybe could have beat somebody. Whatever. Trish Stratus was there last night. She starts talking about how she could go from retired to unretired real quick once Bayley was talking smack in the ring, telling her to get the hell out of Toronto, get the hell out of her WWE ring. And I'm sitting here going, okay, I'll take Trish versus Bayley. Like, let's go. I'll even take an attack female. Like, let's set this up right now. Do it immediately. And then later on in the night, we definitely got that tease that something's going down between Rhea Ripley and Beth Phoenix. So SP3, I'll ask you. You get to pick one. Would you rather see Trish Stratus versus Bayley or Rhea Ripley versus Beth Phoenix?
I'll take Rhea Ripley versus Beth Phoenix. I am more confident that can happen than Trish and Bayley. I would love to see Trish and Bayley, but Trish had a great match with Charlotte Flair 3 years ago, and she's one of the greatest WWE performers of all time. But I just saw Beth Phoenix perform at the Royal Rumble, so I think that she has less ring rust, and that seems like the dream scenario, the dream match for Rhea Ripley. So I would say that, even though I don't think we're going to get either of these matchups, I think we're going to get Edge and Beth Phoenix versus Rhea and Damian.
Yeah. Because maybe now, because that's what I like about Judgment Day, with there being 3 different people, they can honestly feud with separate entities. It doesn't always have to be the Judgment Day collectively versus one group. So maybe Dolph Ziggler's pivot from Theory is to go to Finn Balor last night, which I loved how they set that match up too. That was very, very simple. A very simple setup, even though, like, Finn talking about Dolph gravitating toward Young's talent, even though his tag team partner was 46. Whatever. I love Dolph sitting here saying, dude, kid, I'm like a year older than you. And then he smacks him. And then he comes back through the curtain and says, are you going to come to the ring, or are you just going to sit there like a little bitch? Like, I cackled when Dolph came back and did that. Probably because I wasn't expecting it, but too, it was objectively hilarious. Ziggler just poking his head back through and saying, come on, bitch, let's go. Let's get into the ring. So maybe that's the pivot there, is they continue with Balor and Dolph, and they can focus on Beth Phoenix, Edge, Damian Priest, and Rhea Ripley. I'm glad you said that, because I'll say Trish and Bayley, because we both get one, which means they're both going to happen. So I'll take Trish and Bayley, because that is a match. I would love to see Trish versus Bayley. I'd love to see Trish versus Sasha Banks. I'd love to see Trish versus Becky. I'd love to see her face all 4 horsewomen, because arguably all 4 of them are the greatest of their generation. She's the greatest of her generation. I would just love to see. Again, I'm a sucker for nostalgia. I'm a sucker for dream matches. I'd love to see her wrestle all 4, to be completely honest with you. Not all good news in the women's division. It appears that the women's tag teams that are being brought up on the main roster are just cursed. Honestly, at this point, because first we had Nikita Lyons and Zoe Stark, who were supposed to compete in the women's tag team title tournament. Zoe Stark gets hurt. Nikita Lyons can't cross the border, even though she refutes that. It's just a joke. Calm down, folks. They have to be replaced by Toxic Attraction. Made the tournament better, in my opinion, because that's an actual tag team. Cool. I'm invested in them. They get the win in round 1. Makes total sense. I'm excited to see where it goes. I'm hopeful they get to the finals. Nope. Reports are Gigi Dolan has a concussion. Now they are removed from the match, and now we are getting a second chance fatal 4-way. Everybody who lost so far, with the exception of Alexa Bliss and Asuka, who lost in the semifinals last night, they're the only team that's out now. All the other teams are still in, outside of the NXT teams that have been removed for various injuries. Who should win on Saturday or Friday, whatever day it is there, SP3? Who you taking? Who you like?
Yeah, this tournament is cursed. This tournament, I'm convinced.
The whole right side of this bracket was hot garbage to begin with. It was always going to be a crapshoot. It was just thrown together hodgepodge, and this is the result that we're getting now.
We got 2 concussions and 1 unvaccinated person. So, who should win Friday's second chance fatal 4-way? It should be Nikki A.S.H and Doudrop. Who is it going to be? I'm fairly certain it might, and I'm laughing as I say this, it's fairly certain it's either going to be Natalya and Sonya Deville or it's going to be Dana Brooke and Tamina, because there is no other reason why Tamina and Dana Brooke, they've been showing them watching this tournament the last 2 weeks, unless they were actually going to do something with them, either coming out of the tournament or give them the second chance here. So that's why I think I'm leaning more towards Tamina and Dana Brooke, because they've been showing them quite often, even though they've been eliminated from this tournament.
It should be Nikki, A.S.H, and Doudrop. It really, really should. As a matter of fact, they should have been positioned on the right side of the bracket, and they should have made it to the finals. But you already have Damage Control, which is the reported name for Bayley's group. You already have them in the finals. So now you have to put a team that the audience is going to be invested in into the finals. And the question is, do you have one? And any of the 5 options, do you really have one? And the answer is no. So you have to go with the babyface team here, which I think, well, you're going to get the heel team, right? I think Nikki and Doudrop, to answer the question, will win the match. But as far as getting to the finals, I think this is a moot question, because I think it's going to be Raquel and Aaliyah that go to the finals anyway. But I wish Nikki and Doudrop would have been positioned better. They're in a circumstance here where they're heels, and the finals, they don't want to do heel versus heel, which I totally understand. So
even though women are natural baby faces.
Yes, 100%. So again, maybe that's a slow turn. Maybe there's a slow burn. There's got to be a story with them. But again, Triple H can't do everything all at once. He's doing a hell of a job so far. I think this is tectonic plates shifting. We're getting some character changes. We're getting some reintroductions. There's a lot of moving parts here. It's not all going to happen overnight.
If I was to grade Triple H, I would give him a solid B+ so far. The returns have hit. We've gotten better television, but my 2 biggest nitpicks is he still needs to do work on this women's division and stop going into the Tony Khan trope of brawls every freaking week. When we started the show with a brawl, I was like, is it just me, or is he becoming too over-reliant on brawling in supplement to actual storyline development? Because I would have loved some just maybe separate promos from Riddle and Seth Rollins over another brawl after they just brawled last week. It was like, okay, we get it. They really don't like each other, even though Riddle has a reason to not like him. I don't really know about Seth, but hey, yeah. And and I agree with Romeo. He has completely torn apart Liv Morgan. And I just tried to put it into the overarching thing of the women's division, because I feel like Damage Control, they could have done more to kind of explain them as a group, and I feel like they have just been like, oh, we're just going to put all them in the women's tag team division. They're going to win. That's all we need to do with them, instead of giving them fleshing the group out more. So that's why I said our overarching whole, women's division needs work from Triple H. But those are my 2 big nitpicks, but still overall B+. But yeah, and this women's, the curse that's been going on with this women's tag team tournament has not helped them at all.
My biggest nitpick, or I guess my biggest complaint, because it's a little bit more than a nitpick, with Damage Control, is so far the formulaic, hey, we're going to go start some shit, and then we're going to back away once somebody steps up to us. What is the problem? There's a fine line between smart heels and chicken shit heels, and Bayley is starting to dance that line more toward the chicken shit side. And I'm sitting here and I'm going, okay, yeah, so no problem. She'll accept the fight from Aaliyah, because Aaliyah's not accomplished anything. But you can't talk shit to somebody like Trish Stratus, who hasn't wrestled in 3 years, even though she has a hell of a resume, and then fade away when you have a 3-on-2 advantage at that point. That's what I don't like. There's nothing wrong. There's nothing wrong with booking them as 3 badass wrestlers, which is what they are.
I would have just liked her to kind of just jump Bianca and Trish, so Asuka and Alexa had a reason to come out, instead of doing like, there's 2 of us, there's 3 of you. what are you gonna do? And then Trish has time to be like, well, I count 1, 2, and then they come out. Like, you had like at least 3 minutes to jump them, get some offense in, like show that you're a heel force and that you're more than just talking. That's all they've been. And a lot of their talking has been empty words of kind of the let's give them a promo where they have to say control in it so we can get that word over. Like, it's been very, I agree, formulaic is a good word for how they've been building up this group.
They're 3 badass women, 3 of the best women's wrestlers on the. I will say Dakota Kai, I have loved Dakota Kai's presentation. I've loved the work that she has done. That sell of the DDT last night was spectacular. But yeah, tweaks, little changes, a little bit more story. But again, I agree with you. Solid B+. I'm excited. I'm happy, right? Like, all of a sudden, Raw and SmackDown have become appointment viewing for me again. Like, I'm genuinely excited to watch each show week in and week out, and it doesn't feel like a chore or an obligation anymore because some people pay me money to watch the product and then talk about it. AEW hasn't felt like an obligation for, well, ever, really, to be completely honest. And tomorrow night in Cleveland, no Johnny Gargano. I can guarantee that. But I can also guarantee the fact that we are going to have an AEW World Championship match tomorrow night. CM Punk, Jon Moxley, the pride of Cincinnati. But could there be a Long Island injection into this whole scenario? Because one of the constant theories, SP3, was that, oh, well, they're doing this match early because MJF is going to come back. MJF is coming back. They're going to bring back MJF, who we haven't seen since he called Tony Khan an effing mark on live television and begged to be fired. Haven't seen him since. No evidence of that, but that was the running theory. And then we get the report. I believe it was Wrestling Observer, said MJF is due back relatively soon. And that was our first inkling of actual evidence that this might be the case. So, SP3, number 5 here on the 5 count to wrap out the show. Preview tomorrow's big AEW Dynamite. Who walks out AEW World Champion? And does MJF return in Cleveland?
Who walks out AEW World Champion? CM Punk and Jon Moxley. I don't think we're getting a finish tomorrow. And I am going to go out on a limb and say MJF should not return tomorrow night. I think they can come up with a way to make this a smallish finish, make this the opening matchup, save the trios tournament matchup because you're going to get Pac versus Ospreay. You could save that for the main event. Make this the opening contest, make them go 20, 30 minutes, however long CM Punk can go on a bad wheel, a still recovering wheel, and give them the smudge finish, and then do a bigger matchup, whether it's a ladder match with both titles above the ring at All Out, even though that wouldn't be good for Punk's foot either, or a steel cage match or a lights out match at All Out to determine the undisputed champion. That's what needs to happen. You save MJF's return for All Out in Chicago.
I would agree. I don't think we're going to get him in Cleveland. No disrespect, Cleveland. I just don't. You're already getting an AEW World Title match, all right? You don't need MJF as well. But then again, they brought back Kenny Omega in frickin' West Virginia, so maybe I'm thinking too deep into the actual location of where Dynamite is. I do think we get a winner tomorrow. I'm going to go with. Again, if MJF is coming back, he's coming back to challenge Punk, right? So you would want to keep CM Punk babyface. So now I'm second guessing myself here because I'm sitting here going, I like my idea from last week of Punk cheating to beat Jon Moxley to complete the heel turn. But then would they be so bold as to bring MJF back as a babyface? Because I do think maybe MJF will get cheered. How about that concept? A heel CM Punk AEW World Champion defending against a babyface MJF. That could be very, very interesting. So maybe I've just talked myself back into it. And yes, since we're running out of time, I'm going to call it. I think CM Punk needs to beat Jon Moxley and completes the heel turn.
You don't do Punk versus MJF 3 on 2 weeks build. That's another reason. That's another reason.
No, you misinterpret what I'm saying. Jon Moxley will get a rematch in Chicago because Punk cheated. And then MJF shows back up at All Out and builds to the
Okay.
Punk. Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Okay.
That's what I'm saying. So I think Punk wins by cheating, completes the heel turn. Moxley gets pissed. He gets his rematch in Chicago, and then MJF interjects himself. Babyface MJF interjects himself in Chicago.
I don't see how you have CM Punk as a heel going into Chicago. He's going to get cheered in Chicago. That's like turning Stone Cold in Texas at WrestleMania 17. Oh shoot, that did happen. My bad. But yeah, I don't think they should repeat that mistake.
Yeah, but here's the
thing. I think that MJF should return in Chicago, and he is going to get cheered, and use that as the catalyst to turn CM Punk heel. That the guy attacking him after his big moment of becoming undisputed champion, the guy that they hated when he versed them the first time in Chicago, gets cheered. Then we can have on the Dynamite following All Out the promo where CM Punk actually turns heel because he feels rejected by his own people of Chicago, and he's been hearing the response from the fans over the last couple of weeks since he said what he said about Jon Moxley. And then that feels more like a genuine reason to turn heel.
I do like that as well. I will say this much. If you do send CM Punk into Chicago as a heel already, it doesn't necessarily burn you, because AEW has always played into their crowds of saying, cheer for whoever the hell you want. Britt Baker was a heel. She got cheered like a goddess in Pittsburgh. She was still acted like a heel. She just didn't shit on the crowd. Same with MJF when he went to Long Island, right? He was a babyface for a night. CM Punk was a heel. So you can still send Punk in as a heel. Who cares if he gets cheered in Chicago? Because of course he's going to get cheered in Chicago. We appreciate you guys for tuning in today. We will be back 7 a.m. on Thursday morning to break down what should be a fantastic AEW Dynamite and anything else that happens to break over the next 48 hours or so. We are expecting a report from Sean Rossap later today about the WWE draft. So we'll talk about that and so much more. And who knows what other reports are going to in this crazy year. It is absolutely batshit insane. Check out my interview with Damian Priest. Next week, I'll have an interview with Shayna Baszler that is going to drop ahead of Clash at the Castle, who could be the future SmackDown Women's Champion. MCASP, first off, can you send me a phonetic spelling of how to pronounce your name? Because I don't know how to. Is it MCASP? I'm gonna go with MCASP.
I say MCASP.
MCASP. 7 a.m. is the regular podcast. It's not a live show, so that's what will drop at 7 a.m. our normal time. That's when it's available. You can watch it anytime on demand here on Bleav in Pro Wrestling, or you can listen to it on demand wherever podcasts are available. Thank you guys so much for watching all 52 minutes of this 45-minute podcast. SP3 has work to go do. We're late. I got to run. You've been listening to Bleav in Pro Wrestling, brought to you by Bet Online.